In this week's Webform Wednesday, we're talking about a metric that I think is really important when you're evaluating HR technology solutions, and one that I ask vendors a lot. And really what this comes down to is engagement. So I'm kind of taking a lesson that I learned in venture capital and applying it to software selection in a way that I think is pretty relevant. So from a venture capital perspective, what we were always trying to do is figure out what are the companies that are going to be successful. And so we would typically look at how often were those services used, which kind of sounds like an obvious thing, but we don't always do this in vendor selection. So on the x-axis here is time, the y-axis is usage, and let's think about a product like Uber that's been so successful. And you can imagine that when somebody first starts using Uber, they're like, oh, cool, like a friend recommended this to me. Oh, this is like slightly better than a taxi. Oh, this is actually really good. Oh, this is like part of my life right now. And they're using it all the time. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was this LinkedIn competitor called BranchOut that was built on top of the Facebook platform a while back. And its usage looked more like this. Somebody would invite you and you would use the product, and then you would never log back in. And so BranchOut had a ton of users. I think it was like 200 or 300 million. They basically, their pitch was like, hey, we've got more users than LinkedIn, but nobody ever used it. And so it was never valuable. So it never became a thing. And my guess is that when you launch a lot of HR tech internally, what happens is you get a small cohort of people that are like the early adopters, and they use it, and then you evangelize it internally and everybody kind of knows about it. And then over time, it just kind of goes away. If it doesn't become part of the fabric of your culture, the way that your operating procedures go, then it becomes a branch out situation where it's not valuable. And that's why when you're evaluating these vendors, you want to understand, oh, you've got an employee rewards program. Tell me how people engage with it. How often do they interact with it? Is it just in anniversaries, or is it something that is going to get people to come back month after month after month? So the sort of gold standard here is what's called the SMILE. So over time, usage for HR tech should start off relatively high. This is where you evangelize it, and everybody in the organization knows about it. And there's going to be some natural churn over time. Some people just don't get it, they're too busy, whatever. And then over time, because the value of this is so high, you still have a large cohort of people that use this product, and they re-engage all those people that were originally lost. And so eventually it starts to come back over time, and you get sort of this SMILE thing that happens. And you can imagine an employee peer-to-peer recognition program that starts off with a bang. Hey, we're doing this thing. We do all this internal comms, announcement, all hands, etc. And then it just kind of falls off because people are busy and they're inundated with all this stuff. And then because it's so good, like people are recognizing each other, and then it's bringing people back to the platform who recognize other people. Maybe there's some cool rewards. And all of a sudden it gets back to this like very gold standard, 80%, 90% of people interacting with it on a monthly basis. And so now when I talk to HR vendors, we're always trying to figure out who are the best vendors in a given space. Many times I'll ask this sort of engagement question: how often do recruiters use this? How many emails are they sending for LinkedIn? How many emails are they sending for other sourcing tools? How many rewards are given out in a given month? How many people are recognized? And by the way, like, this might not all be happening in the tool. Maybe it's happening in Slack, maybe it's happening in Teams and Gmail, etc. But the tool is sort of the underlying thing that's providing value. Usage is really a function for value. And so some tools you don't log into, but they're still providing you value. But this is, in my opinion, just a super interesting framework and a very useful framework for evaluating different types of HR tech. Phil Struzula from Select Software Reviews. Let us know what you think about this.